Well, let's go back to London now, and Laura Macon-Isherwood is there. She joins us now to give us a sense of the latest. Laura, thanks very much indeed for joining us. I can only imagine that, here's a country where most people alive today have only ever known Prince Philip as Prince Philip, the husband of the Queen.
Absolutely, you're completely right. He has been the husband of the Queen for more than 70 years. He was married to her before she became the Queen. And as you say, the majority of people here are younger than his 99 years. He has always been there in that position. And I feel, even though some people might not be ardent fans of the monarchy, as you've brought up in those previous clips, there's still a real sense of this being a pivotal moment in the United Kingdom. And for the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen, she's always described Prince Philip as her strength and her stay. And so for her, this announcement today that her beloved husband, as she put it, has passed away must be a really devastating time.
So in one of the clips, somebody said this is a historical death, and I agree to the sense that this is probably a seminal moment in the royal family. There have been deaths, but because of his stature and the role that he played, this is beyond significant.
Absolutely. He was a real confidant for Her Majesty the Queen. He gave advice to her, and he was a solid part of her life, of the monarchy. He was very much at the head of it, even though Her Majesty the Queen is obviously the monarch, and he was well respected within the family itself. Prince Harry, his grandson, who has obviously been in the headlines over the last couple of months for various interviews he's been given, that one with Oprah Winfrey, of course, making headlines everywhere. He had paid tribute to his grandfather. He's done that already, putting a slate on his website, the Archwell Foundation, in which he says he will be sorely missed, and paying tribute to him. Of course, we expect his grandson, Prince Harry, to return now, we think, for the funeral, which could take place in a week or so's time. We're not sure if Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, will join him, of course, under COVID restrictions, and she is, of course, pregnant with the couple's second child. But we do think that Prince Harry will be here. And those funeral arrangements, they're now being planned. Obviously, things are going to have to change because of COVID restrictions, but we'll get more details in the coming days as to what they will be.
We've been talking about Prince Philip being a confidant and a right-hand man, but perhaps even more. But the one thing that I think that everybody agrees, this was a love story as well, wasn't it, between Her Majesty and Prince Philip?
Absolutely, they've known each other for nearly the entirety of their lives. Her Majesty the Queen first met Prince Philip when she was just 13. He was 18, he was in the Royal Navy, and I understand he gave Her Majesty the Queen a tour of the Royal Naval College at Greenwich. They kept in touch, and then obviously as the Queen became older, that friendship became romantic and they became husband and wife. Prince Philip actually had to give up his titles from his Greek and Danish heritage in order to take on a new name, Mountbatten, and then join the royal family. And he really has become a Brit, really, even though he was born in Corfu. And as you say, it's been a love story. And for Her Majesty the Queen, she made it clear in that statement, calling him her beloved husband and making this announcement with great sorrow. So for her, this is going to be a pretty horrendous day, and over the next few months, years, people are going to be really watching and seeing how she copes with it and moves forward. But of course, she is the figurehead, the monarch, and she takes this sense of duty to her country very seriously. So for her, she will continue.
Apart from the official statement, have we heard anything from the royal family today?
No, not really, not other than that statement. Of course, people, the public here, have been laying flowers at the gates, paying their own tributes. I imagine things will remain quiet. We'll get details, obviously, about the funeral. We understand that's going to be private, take place at Windsor Castle, probably, and the public are being encouraged not to come to any of the events that build up to that funeral. But until then, I think things will probably remain quite private for the family.
All right. I mean, give us a sense, because I think if you haven't lived in the UK, one doesn't understand just how superstar status the royal family has. I mean, there are magazines dedicated to them, channels and correspondence that all they do is cover the royal family. So this is huge, isn't it?
It is huge. The royal family are a key part of British life. The monarchy has been there for centuries, you know, it's a real part of British history. And as you said earlier, people here only really understand, you know, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, being at the head of that family. We have palaces, you know, Buckingham Palace behind me, a real pivotal part of London. People travel from all over the world to come and see it. Then you've got Windsor Castle, where Her Majesty the Queen is right now, where Prince Philip spent his final days. That's a huge estate there with lots of homes that various members of the royal family live in when they are either, you know, married or perhaps returning from various trips abroad. This is a real institution. It's known as the firm from within because it operates in a real business-like fashion, and it has always been here. So for Brits, regardless of whether they are royalists or they are against the monarchy, they are always here and they are a part of Britain.
And I would imagine that the Commonwealth countries in other parts of the world where Prince Philip would have travelled to many times are probably also reflecting on his passing.
Absolutely. If you travel across the world to different parts of the Commonwealth, there's always a picture of Her Majesty the Queen. People do take her role in those countries very seriously. And of course, as you say, Prince Philip has joined Her Majesty the Queen on many of those trips abroad. He's been there, he's been part of it, he's spoken to people that have been on the ground there, and people definitely respected him. Of course, he was a member of the Royal Navy, he travelled, he fought in World War II, and his understanding of different cultures, sometimes he made references that weren't quite taken in the way that they should have been, perhaps a little gaffe every now and then when he would say things that were a little close to the knuckle. But you know, overall, he loved to travel, he loved to speak to different people, and he took his role very seriously.
And for someone who's lived this long, this royal couple have lived through so much change, not just in England, the whole world, and they talk about the modernization of the monarchy under their stewardship. And I guess this may be one of the things that they look back on and say, what did he contribute?
Absolutely. Of course, we know with Prince Charles getting ready to take on the position of king when obviously Her Majesty the Queen does eventually pass away. He's been talking very much about this modernisation of the monarchy, trying to streamline it a bit, and that was, as you know, what Prince Philip also had thought might be necessary. But Prince Philip would also be known for many other things. He was a real charitable person. He obviously developed the Duke of Edinburgh Award, encouraged a lot of young people to get involved in adventure and to give time to the community. And his legacy there will live on in many ways.
Laura Macon Isherwood, we're going to leave it there for the time being. I have no doubt it's going to be a busy couple of weeks until the details and things start to come through about funeral arrangements. But thank you so much indeed for your update. All right, that's Laura Macon Isherwood, who's our correspondent in London, talking to us there about how the country is reacting to the loss of Prince Philip.